Welcome everybody to an episode of the Levers Pod. I'm here with Tej. We're sans Chris today, and we're just going to get into a couple topics that have happened over the past month or so in the crypto market. So thank you for tuning in with us. Tej, you got anything to say?
Nah, bro, I'm just blessed to be here. Got a little burnt in the sun, swam in the river, or without Chris, which is lovely.
Yeah, you look like you got some color. What's the weather out? Weather like right now?
Dude, it's nice in the valley. It's been very cold. I think this global heating thing's a bit of a scam. But today it was sunny. Took a bike ride, went for a swim, met my new neighbors. Life is good. Life is good in a hamlet of Stuyvesant.
Amazing, dude. Well, it's been good in my world too, in the world of NFTs, and we'll get into that. So I guess the first thing here is Moonbirds. So I don't know how much you know about this one. I'm sure you saw it on Twitter and stuff, but
Bro, I know about fucking moonbirds.
yeah, what do you
You don't live under a rock.
what do you think about it? Bullish, bearish, neutral?
I don't know, dude. It breaks my models of the world is what I'll say.
How so?
I mean, I don't know. It seems like just like a terrible art project that for whatever reason all the wealthiest crypto people decided to converge upon and then Ponzi each other, and now they're dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. I mean, so let's look at this. It got up to it, so it broke records for volume and price. I'm pretty sure, right? And the first day, the day of mint, it did 36,000 ETH in volume. So what is that? 36,500. I don't even know what's ETH's price right now. What is it?
It's like
200.
I think 3K basically.
It's about basically 3K. Okay. So first day it did 110 million in trading volume, US in dollars.
I mean, this is why people hate crypto.
Yeah, it's like, where's all this money coming from? I guess I don't know the if like what there is to back this claim, but it's like definitely what everyone's saying is that a lot of institutions bought this project, and so they just were just sweeping the fuck out of the floor, and it just kept flying and flying.
Why do you reckon? Like, do you reckon this is like a first entry into NFTs for institutions? And if so, why the hell this project?
Yeah, that's what people are saying, and I think it's just because it's like the perfect formula. I mean, honestly, I was trying to get one on the mint day, because to me, I was like, this is the most no-brainer thing to go to 100K. Like, this is like the most obvious trade if you can get it for a decent price. And I missed it because I went to fucking church on Easter, But it was like 30K when I left, and then it was, I don't know, 70K when I got back or something. But like so it's Kevin Rose, obviously, who founded Dig, but even more like relevant is that he founded Proof Collective, right? And these were like a normal mint. Like, I think they minted for 1 ETH or something. I mean, semi-normal mint, it's a low supply.
What the hell is Proof Collective?
So this is like his basically, like, the way he describes it is Bankless actually had a really good podcast with him, but like they most people like sell a profile pic NFT and then like try to build out a community based around it, and he wanted to do it the opposite way. So like the Proof Collective is and so what they did was they did a really good job at attracting like serious art collectors. So like one of one, like X copy, like people who like that shit, and the utility that they gave those people was basically like a private Discord, but they have like a real research team that like does these kind of deep dive analyses and just like quick summary stuff, but also deep dive analyses of, on specific artists, and like, here's who this person is, here's why they're culturally relevant, and they're targeted like long-term investor types, and they successfully like captured the attention of that, you know, demographic in the market. And then from that, they gave all of the people who had one of the proof passes, they gave them 2 whitelists, or no, they gave them 2 free Moonbirds. And then so the proof pass is 1,000 supply, the Moonbirds is 10K supply. And they already had this diehard community. They had the price of these was already at, I think, 75 ETH when Moonbirds came out. And so he had done like a wildly successful NFT project. He's a successful founder, super well connected. He has like a huge podcast about NFTs. He had taken his time to like really understand the space, and so it was just like a no-brainer play. But it, even with all that considered, like it exceeded everybody's expectations, you know.
So the deal with Proof Collective is basically, instead of NFT first, community second, they build a community through sort of like I don't know, insights into art and tracking of sort of culture and individual artists. And once they built this community, then they gave this community whitelisted access to Moonbirds.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like what's interesting about this is, like, I've seen this in a few projects, and you know, I'm no NFT expert, as you know, but I feel like if you get into the right project, right, and you basically get exclusivity into other projects, and if you for whatever reason have happened into the right project, like, you're kind of good, you know, like Degen Apes, for example, right? Like, if you got an ape, like, and you went and did what you needed to do, you'd get an egg, right? Mm-hmm. And like the next step, like that brand, these brands are IP brands, right? And they'll continue to build and they'll continue to do things, whether in the real world or like next NFT projects. And if you're just in that community, I feel like you can kind of just, you know, sort of passively follow along and get access to all these exclusive opportunities that people outside wouldn't. So like what I misunderstood about Moonbirds, right, was I was like, oh, this is just a shitty NFT project. But ultimately, like, there was like a whole bunch of work that went in beforehand, like to build a community that got whitelisted access, right? It was like, it's a little bit more complex than my midwit explanation.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's well said. That's well said. And like, that's what I think the market has kind of taught people is like, when you have a good project and you just fucking place your trust in them, you know, the key is that it's a good project. Like, it's hard to be a 0.1% good project, but the market has taught, like, okay, if you just find a good project and you fucking bet big and just have conviction, like, it typically pays off, you know. Like we were talking about it beforehand, but the guys who just held a Bored Ape over the past year made, like, I think now the ape coin's even higher. So it's like it's over $250,000 in airdrops. It's like insane, dude. You know, it's an incredible salary, and they didn't even sell their fucking biggest asset. And so, obviously that's the outlier. That's the number one, you know. But I think the market's like started to adjust for that, and kind of everybody wants to be early to something. Everybody wants to be at the next Bored Apes, you know.
Right.
And so people are looking for that. And then I think like Kevin Rose and his team, they did a good job at like I think they could be potentially bigger than Bored Apes, honestly. I mean, that's
the thing about Bored Apes, which I find so interesting, is and why there's so much room for competitors to go above and beyond what they've built, is the thing about Bored Apes is that the brand is actually, in my opinion, not that great, in that like Bored Ape holders are caricatured as like pretty basic and cultureless and like maybe like dumb because they keep getting their shit stolen, right? Like, all things considered, like the culture behind Bored Apes is actually not that desirable, but for whatever reason, the Bored Apes, insofar as they're like a Veblen good that is just like ridiculously overpriced and you can just slap people in the face with how wealthy you are, like there's so much of the premium that's caught up in that if like, you know, Kevin Rose and co, like if someone builds like a real like rich scarce culture that gives you access to real life things, I mean, like you could see a brand like vastly eclipsing Bored Apes, right? And like,
yeah,
what's so interesting about like particularly which liquid tokens are performing well right now is it's Ape and it's Steppen, right? It's like most
yeah, dude, I hadn't even thought about that.
Most so rancid, I mean, I guess they're not meme coins, right? But
that is so funny. I had never thought about
speculative,
without any obvious utility today, right? They really they're sort of axie like Ponzi-nomics. I don't like love that word, but I mean they're the only ones that are green, right? And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, how is Ape ripping this hard? Are we midwitting it, or or is there actually something behind the value of this brand? Like you saw OpenSea integrated Ape as a medium of exchange, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's clearly people are clearly making a bet that those two brands, Ape being the token of Bored Apes and Steppen being the token of the Steppen Walk to Earn app, like those are absolutely massive. And I was on Twitter the other day arguing with this guy at Arca, who's like a fundamentals dude, which I usually appreciate. But like I feel like the end game with Steppen, right, is does this brand ultimately, by bribing people to walk and get tokens, does it generate enough data such that the partnerships that could utilize that data are a fundamental at the end of the tunnel, right? So like, does Steppen partner with like healthcare providers or Whole Foods to give holders discounts? Like that's ultimately the bet you're making with Ape too, right? It's like Ape at some point is going to give me exclusive access to something.
Yeah. And today is the Yuga land. Man, there's so much shit happening in NFTs right now. It's crazy. But today's the Yuga land sale.
And the land sale. That's right.
Yeah, that's right now. And you have to pay, or it's in 5 hours, and you have to pay in 8.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how they're counting that as revenue. Are they going to go dump all the tokens?
That's a good question.
I was like, that was what I didn't understand. Is that just everyone knows that that's a huge short opportunity, right? That they're meant, But I mean, to go back to what you're saying, I mean, yeah, it's that's interesting because everybody calls everybody's like, oh, Steppen is like, oh, it's a good Ponzi. We're early to a new Ponzi and shit. See, you can speak more about Steppen because I haven't done it yet. You try it, right?
Yeah, I feel like the value prop, or not the value prop, but the appeal to Steppen is it's so simple, and that's what's beautiful about it. It's like you're getting people into crypto, right? And all they have to do is like buy an imaginary sneaker and go outside and walk, and then they earn coins, right? Like this is the thing about NFTs. Like NFTs are a vehicle that transport normies into crypto. Like no normie is going to go and try to figure out DeFi and how to yield farm and like any of that shit because they don't care. Yeah. It's not interesting, right? It's not human. But NFTs, that's really human. Walking to earn tokens, that's really very human. So I don't know, like, while these things are like maybe unsustainable, like Steppen has the potential to bring in like hundreds of millions of people. I mean, the sneakers are unaffordable, right? Obviously, but like you can rent. There'll be a rental market at some point. It's so simple that I could see it acting as a bridge that people are underestimating.
Is there even like, are they even trying to act like there's a way that it's sustainable as it is, or is it just, hey, we're just putting liquidity behind it from the VCs in hopes that we get enough users and data and like can have a revenue model?
I don't think there's any.
There's no like mental gymnastics of, oh, this is how it's sustainable. Okay.
I mean, I don't think so. Like, obviously, I clearly don't know because I doubt the founders would ever say that, right? It's just like untenable to say that publicly. So they probably have something they say. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, what they're doing is they're also burning. They're burning a lot of Steppen per day, right?
But who's buying Steppen?
Well, you spend the tokens to like repair your shoes and shit, and so like the company's receiving back tokens, right? And so like they get those tokens and then they burn them on the open market, right? Or they receive some revenue in Sol from selling sneakers. They swap the Sol into Steppen on the open market and burn it, right? So like there's this natural mechanism that there's a large incremental buyer in the market that's not organic, which is, by the way, I feel like what Ape is probably going to do too, right? Like you said, like, what the fuck are they going to do when they get all this Ape for the land? Like if I were them, I would burn it.
Yeah, that would make sense. For sure. But I don't think they, for some reason, from what I've read, it seems like they're not, like, because I don't know if you saw that thing was never really fully confirmed, but like it was like supposed to be a pitch deck from Yuga. It was leaked. Did you see that?
No.
It was basically like their pitch deck, and like they were talking about how they're going to make so much revenue from minting this land. We're going to sell these fucking idiots some metaverse land, you know? And so most people thought it would be an ETH, but then now it's not. So I don't know. It's there's kind of like, it's kind of obscured, like how it exactly works. But yeah. It's just funny to think that they can like get away with like making people buy so many damn NFTs, and people keep buying them up to these crazy prices, you know?
Yeah.
Because like when Mutant Apes came out, I think there were 2.5 ETH mint for 20,000 of them.
Even for holders too?
I think so, bro.
Jesus.
I think holders had to pay. I'm pretty sure. I don't quote me on that, but they didn't have to pay for the dogs. They didn't have to pay for the mutant or the board kennel club or whatever stupid little thing.
So, here comes the train. I don't know how loud that is, but
it's not too loud.
All right, so here's a question. So you see this a lot, right? Like you see NFT founders really try to extract as much value from the market as humanly possible, right? Like Bored Apes hits the market with the first 10,000 mint. Mutant Apes come along, instead of like, I don't know, giving free mints to holders or like keeping the price more affordable, like they're jamming you with 2.5 ETH, and they keep going, right? And like in some sense, like it's not really right to do that. Like you're taking advantage of people, but at the same time, if the market's willing to bear that, right? Like, aren't you just optimizing? Like, aren't you just executing your capital market strategy perfectly?
I mean, yeah, it's a great point, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, where do you come out on it as like someone who like meets a lot of these founders and see these mints and see how fans and Twitter respond? Like, is there a line in the sand, or what do you think?
Oh man, I have so many thoughts on this. So it like Bored Apes, it's kind of tough because like you said, it's like the market is telling them like, we want to give you all this fucking money. And so is it wrong of them to go, hey, we're going to charge for, because even though those guys minted which again, don't quote me on it, but even if you minted it for 1 point or 2.5, where are they at now? I mean, I think they're being sold for like, bro, they're at 40 ETH floor right now. The mutants are at 40 ETH floor. Yeah.
The mutants are rancid. The Bored Apes are already rancid.
I hate the Sargon. That's why I never bought it, bro.
It's terrible.
I kept trying to make myself buy one of these floor guys, and I never did. I was like, God, it looks terrible. Yeah, but they're $100,000 floor. So yeah, I mean, but Bored Apes is the exception, is the thing. So to answer your question, most of the people I talk to, I mean, dude, I talk to a lot of NFT projects who are like trying to get started on Solana, and most of them are like literally just a cash grab. Like, I mean, like that's all they want to do is just make some fucking money, like easily and quickly. And then, yeah. So most people are like that. And so I think that's like, and the barrier to entry to start a NFT project is like nothing, Yeah. So that's why I feel jaded about it. But Bored Apes, in their example, it's like, man, is it really fucked up of them to ask for more money? I mean, I don't know. It does take a lot of money to build a metaverse. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, it's almost like, I don't know, if a founder was overpricing the NFT, like relative to fundamentals, then, demand should underclip supply, right? And they shouldn't sell out the mint. Like if they sell out the mint, it's almost like who are you to say that the market doesn't know best,
Right. I mean, I guess it becomes a question of like, do you want to pass that wealth on to your investors or to yourself, or to the company? And like, for example, Moonbirds, actually, their mint was extremely, like one of the most hyped mints like of all time was Moonbirds. And they were going to do like a Dutch auction, and they had played around with different ideas of starting a Dutch auction at like 20 ETH and having it count down, which is what a lot of these, it's kind of more of a normal practice now for the really like anticipated mints. But then they changed it and they're like, no, we're just doing flat rate of 2.5 ETH, and we're going to raffle off who gets on this allow list. And so to me, that was like, they knew they could have raised like triple the money if they wanted to. Like they easily could have done an 8 ETH mint and people would have bought it. I like almost guarantee it, you know? And they would have had all that value, but instead they, you know, they're just passing on the value, and and you still get the transaction fee. So that's another thing is like Chris is launching Drift token, right? One day. And like, is Chris going to get a fee every time somebody trades his actual token? Like, no, but Bored Apes does. I mean, they've made like, I forget. It's a ridiculous amount of money just off the royalties of people trading it. So,
well, I mean, the analogy, right, with a liquid token is the founders of the protocol who launched the native token don't get transaction fees when the token is traded, but the exchange upon which the token is traded, of course, gets transaction fees, right? So, in a sense, like for well, I guess NFTs are a bit different though, because you can trade them on an exchange and still divert some of the exchange fees to the founders, right? Like as opposed to like with like SMBs, or that's a bad example. Well, I guess it's a good, or like DeGods, right? Like DeGods is a Magic Eden thing, right?
yeah.
But some of the Magic Eden fees go to DeGods holders, right?
No.
I thought there was
Magic. So Magic Eden takes their 2%, and then the project takes their artist royalties. Do you mean that?
Yeah.
So it's becoming more normal now for the artist royalties to go into like some type of community treasury or something like that. Which I think DeGods does. And DeGods, by the way, has a fucking crazy one. It's just 10% fee of every sale. It's like I like can't believe not more people talk about it, but that's a whole other thing. That's another trend in Solana we've seen more lately.
Bro,
they're raising them.
Let's talk about. I feel like this part of the NFT market, you know, might be the section that you traffic the least. It's like the Nifty Gateway section of the world. Have you heard of Akutars?
Yeah.
So, like another like very anticipated mint, right? Like Micah Johnson, like ex-baseball player, fucking huge, has like partnerships with Puma. They're gonna make a fucking movie. Like the IP is gonna pop off. I shit you not, dude. A year ago, my mom started buying Aku. She started buying chapters on Nifty Gateway because she just loved the art, and she gained enough. She bought 3 chapters, and then Sam and I bought her one for Christmas. So she had 4 chapters, which gave her 2 whitelists for the Akutars. I feel like this shit, like if you're talking about brands that can appeal like to the masses and like a really interesting story and narrative, like I feel like this is the sort of shit that like you can build like a legitimate brand culture and metaverse around.
Yeah, this is this guy who does this Twitter space I listen to. He loves these, and he hit it huge on these. He had been talking about them for like since Nifty Gateway. I want to see what's his name, Micah Johnson now. Dude, maybe you told me about this a while ago because I was like, I always thought it sounded familiar. Is it just like that?
No, go to the artist to the right. You see it there, the second column. Yeah, no, left. Right there.
That's him.
Yeah, so you did the George Floyd's, but keep going down.
Oh, this is like chapter 3.
He's got one his most sort of famous or like well-known chapter. Keep going down. Is the one on the subway. Like you'll see it. I can't remember what chapter it is. There's no more.
So let's see, chapter 6. This is all of them, I think. 5. No, 2, 3.
I don't know which one it is.
But anyway, but they fucked up the mint, by the way. I mean, there was a shitload of ETH stolen.
Really?
Yeah, I think 35 million got rugged.
Holy shit, bro.
But I mean, what they did, which was dope, is I mean they've been selling, you know, like all of these chapters, right, with Aku in them, and so there's a project treasury, and the Akutars were launched. Like existing chapter holders got whitelist. They sold the Akus in a Dutch auction. I think that the average was like 2 ETH. And then 35 mil was rugged, but they refunded everyone with the project treasury, which is just like what you do, right?
Damn.
And to an extent, what that basically says, I feel like, to the market is like, we're in this shit for the long term, right? Like, we know there's enough long term value in this project that it's the obvious choice to refund everyone today in the short term rather than not do that. Which, to an extent, like my uninitiated mind, if I had to condense NFT investing like very broadly down to like a very simple like North Star, it would be which of these builders are in it for the long term.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's such a bullish signal to the market. I didn't know that they did that.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that happened.
You're just like, I believe in this shit so much that 35 million. I mean, it's kind of like what the what Jump did with Wormhole, right?
Right.
They're just like,
which was crazy.
Yeah.
How much was that? That was like 400 million.
Yeah, I think it was 600.
This is so crazy to think that they had. I mean, it's just crazy, man.
I mean, can you imagine though, in hindsight, if they hadn't done that and like the link between ETH and Sol was just like sullied?
Oh yeah. There's been a lot of bridge hacks, man. Right? The Ronin one was huge too.
There was two today. So Rari, a fuse pool, a bunch of fuse pools got hacked for like 80 million on Rari.
God damn.
And a compound fork, I think, got drained for 80 million today. Dude, I feel like it goes in waves, but like right now, it's definitely pretty ugly on the security front.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesus, bro.
Yeah, it's a mess, bro. I mean, this is part of why, like, sometimes when the regulators are knocking, they're like, "Oh, we gotta protect the consumers." It's like,
yeah.
On days like that, I kind of feel you.
Yeah, it's so true, dude. And then it also just makes me doubt, like, oh man, like, is it just because it's still early, kind of, or is it like, fuck, could this ever work, But like, could this ever have like substantial financial activity on it, like as a portion of the world's financial activity?
Right.
It makes me like question that. But dude, okay, so we kind of talked about that. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was for NFTs is the OK Bears. Well, here, let me.
I'm so hyped to talk about Jewel.
Oh yeah, the Jewel FUD. Yeah. I was digging into that today. I was like, oh my god. I still have a good amount invested in that fucking Ponzi game.
Not only invested, but locked up now.
Well, not locked, but I just have it in the Heroes, which is like their NFT. It's like so illiquid, They're just. I don't even want to check if the prices. I'm like, man, I don't think I could even sell my position right now if I wanted to. Yeah, dude. So this mint, OK Bears, basically, just completely unprecedented volume and price for a collection on Solana, like ever. And so they've done 530,000 volume in, I think, just 3 days. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. This is the fourth day of this was their mint day, the 27th. So they did about 200,000 SOL volume on their mint day, which is, to put it in perspective, most projects, like I'm trying to think of like a hyped project that was recent, they might do 20,000, So they did let's look at DeGods, the top project. They've already done more volume than DeGods ever in fucking 3 days.
I don't really. What's the deal with that? What do you reckon? Like, why OK Bears?
Well,
is it just like self-fulfilling, right? Like, I remember hearing you and Triple M on your Twitter Spaces.
Yeah,
Triple M was like most hype mint of the year, and I was like, all right, I took that as a fact, right? But then like if everyone thinks it's the most hyped mint of the year, then like it'll be the most hyped mint, and it'll sort of self-fulfill, right? And then there'll be volume, and all of a sudden you're like, why was there volume? And everyone was like, because there was volume, because it was hyped.
Yeah, because it was the most hyped mint. Yeah. No, it definitely is, because so like there's things about this that are different than other projects, but not as different as the analytics, you know. So like they're like this website, it's simple, but it's just better than like 99% of Solana NFT websites, or really any NFT websites. It's just, it has like some thought and detail into it. Their roadmap isn't, I wouldn't say it's necessarily unique, but you can tell that it's like a very, like, it's all focused on the branding. Oh, we're gonna partner with Magic Eden. We're doing token gated Shopify site, whatever. A lot of this stuff is, again, this is similar to other projects, but like they honestly just make it sound better in their shit when other projects put it. So there's it had this feeling of, okay, this is premium. Then, the art is like extremely inspired by Bored Apes. And I would argue it's like even more brand friendly than Bored Apes. Like there's none of them that are smoking a cigarette, or like, they don't look angry. Like they just look like chill and whatever. They look okay. That's like their whole brand. It's about just being like fucking normal,
Yeah.
And I think that struck a chord with people. And then when they came out, the price moved up so quickly. So again, like for frame of reference, literally 2 or 3 months ago, so that this is a 10K supply. 2 or 3 months ago, people were saying, I will not touch something with a 10K supply. Like it was considered like, oh, there's just not enough demand on Solana to do a 10K supply. And so, but for something with a 10K supply, like I think the all-time like highest that we saw was with Aurori, where it went to like a 50 soul floor the first day. And this on the first day went to over 100, and then it went to 180. I think the next morning, like within the first 24 hours, it went to 180 soul, which is 18K, which is just like, it's just insane. It literally made me, like I was telling you before, like it just made me question a lot of what I thought I knew about the Solana NFT market.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't fully answer your question, but it was just a perfect storm. So it's hyped, Magic Eden endorsement, blah, 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 good branding. The volume starts taking off. And then in that first day, you would think it almost seemed coordinated, but it's just kind of how the NFT market works. It's like a pretty small circle. A bunch of these big Ethereum NFT like whales bought OK Bears and bought a bunch of them. And we're talking about it. And like, oh my God, this is, the coolest thing I've seen since Bored Apes. Everyone would say, this is the next Bored Apes. This is the next Bored Apes. So it just kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And like, it's still holding 10K floor, 100 soul floor, which is like insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, they're definitely, to your point about them being just okay, right? They're inoffensive, right? Like they're likable.
Exactly.
I mean, I feel like that is a nice piece. Like if the base skeleton is kind of likable and appealing, and you could envision it being your profile picture. I mean, I feel like that's another thing, right? Like when you think about like a human who might buy this, like many want to buy it so they can flip it, but many want to buy it so hopefully if it appreciates, they'll have it as their profile picture. So it's like, can this thing reasonably be a mask for me? And like, how many people are sitting in those shoes? Like, what is your market of folks that think an OK Bear is something that could reasonably be their identity in social media? And like, in a sense, like having something average and middle ground and inoffensive is almost the perfect thing for your town.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's well said. There's kind of like what you said about Aku, where it's like your mom was buying it. She thought it was cool. This had a similar effect where like people who aren't into NFTs at all were like, oh, it like strikes a chord with me. Something about the facial expression and the very like normal ass clothing, there's nothing super crazy about most of the traits. The other thing I'll say that you just made me think of when you mentioned the profile picture is that this is this really cool website, NFT Inspect, and it like tracks people's profile pictures on Twitter, and they do this really cool analysis around it. But this had like it was what am I trying to say? No one had seen something happen like this before, where so many like Solana OG guys, like who are like either have a lot of followings or they've been around a long time or the combination of both. So many of them changed their profile picture to the bear on the first day, which is like most people like they kind of will have an identity that's attached to their profile. Like that's the idea of it, right? So like a lot of these guys, like they won't change it that often. And this one just had, I mean, all these guys have like huge followings, you know, like Function is what 100,000, you know, Solstice 50,000.
Of these guys who don't change their profile picture frequently, typically what does it rest on? What is their profile picture? Is it like an SMB of these guys?
This guy had a DGen. I actually don't follow a lot of these guys because a lot of them are fucking annoying. But
Shocking.
like but NFT Inspect did a breakdown of what were people changing their profile picture from the most to go to the bears, and it was the cats on crack.
Interesting.
This one,
yeah,
it's funny because these just had this parabolic rise that everyone was doubting them, and they just kept ripping. So, and then there was a lot of hate from this community of people. Oh, you guys aren't loyal, you know, whatever. You're changing your picture.
It's like, bro, wake up, you know, play the game.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, man, that's like that level of cope is like insane to me, you know.
Dude, it reminds me of the fact that like folks that own one NFT project will like FUD another NFT project when loyal holders move on to the next Ponzi, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like really they're just like FUDing. They're calling you disloyal because you're exiting the project fucks up the price, right?
Right.
It's kind of like, so I posted this on, or actually haven't posted it yet, but I intend to post something of this nature on the Maker forums. Like it's kind of the same thing you see in crypto when people call other projects too centralized, right? It's like, you know, projects are competing, right? And decentralization has become like this, like, you know, this sanctimonious value that everyone should have, right? But then ultimately what you see is when one project calls a competitor too centralized, you know, they're effectively trying to get people to defect for the competitor and give them, you know, come back to them and give them credit. And I feel like you see that a lot in like crypto because of how adversarial it is, right? Like people are masking, you know, they mask, they kind of lie about their, I don't know, they lie about their intentions about why something is undesirable.
I didn't realize I was muted. I was just cracking up. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. And it's also just like, it's just tribalism is so crazy to me because it's like, okay, dude, NFTs are like a very niche thing. Like I know it feels like, oh, like they're big and all these guys are becoming millionaires, but like, dude, it's incredibly this niche interest of a niche. It's a niche of crypto, which is its own little niche of the culture. And then in NFTs, Solana NFTs are a tinier niche. So it's like we should be together on all these levels. Crypto people should be together. NFT people should be together. Solana NFT people should be together. But no, it's like, no, we have to be mad that this guy likes the monkey more than the ape. You know, it's like, oh, it's just insane to me, dude. And like the mental gymnastics, we'll draw these conclusions about it. But I think that's part of why people like it. It's like I read this really good article, you'd like it, where this guy was comparing NFTs to the nightclub scene and how it's like there's kind of all these different types of like participants, and it's really like to create this illusion of this like exclusive exciting thing, or to literally make this like exclusive exciting thing where most of the money is coming from like these super rich people, and the rest of it is kind of like a spectacle to make the rich people want to participate in that like nightclub, which is like that collection.
Right.
And I thought it was super interesting. Like it's just all kind of like manufactured and everyone's like playing their part. Like the guy who like is trying to FOMO in and like buy the OK bear, but he can't afford it. He's like, oh, like that guy is important to the whale who has 100 bears. He's like, haha, like, you know, it makes him feel better that he has all these fucking JPEGs, you know?
Dude, it's actually the nightclub analogy I think is interesting and like brings up like a broader point about like how strong the tribalism and network effects are in crypto. Like the nightclub example, right? Like you have a nightclub and everyone wants to feel like they're part of the exclusivity of that experience, right? And like each player adds something to create like this broader performance that then projects something to the broader world that people want to be a part of. But the thing is, all of the participants, other than the owners, they don't own any of the financial upside in the club.
Yeah, exactly.
With crypto, right? It's like you have those same factors at play and the same network effects, except every stakeholder has a financial stake.
Yeah, and the guy waiting outside the club can become like the whale in a day. You know what I mean? And that makes yeah.
You see those Cinderella stories every single day, and everyone knows they could make it if they play their cards right?
Yeah.
And so dude, if there's an existing amount of tribalism around like a company, like Elon Musk fanboys, or a product, or a city, or a nightclub, take that degree of order of magnitude more in crypto, right?
Yes, bro. And yes,
Vicious.
it's well said. And he outlined some of this stuff, like a couple of other good points he made were that in the nightclub scene, if you're like this like 55-year-old like single guy and you're like dancing with like the 20-year-old college girl, it's like she might be making the guy feel weird, but like everyone in the club is like, dude, this is fucking cringe and like this is weird as fuck, But in NFTs, that's not really the case, Like you don't have to disclose your gender, your age, your nationality. Like a lot of guys barely even speak English, but you wouldn't know, and
Right.
that makes it more accessible and like more, it just makes it more fluid, like where you can kind of be whatever you want. And this is something you point out to me about the metaverse, like early on, which I thought was a cool idea. Like it helps for people who are like, it's just not as outgoing.
Yeah. I mean, and it's actually nice that we had come around to that point, because like that's one of the more hopeful and rosy parts about what I think like crypto economic systems can build, right? Or like even not crypto economic systems, but just like with the metaverse and gaming and like socializing in cyberspace becoming more normalized, is like in its best sense, like it's inclusionary, right? And to the extent that you demonstrate good ideas or you can contribute, that's really all people care about, because literally your identity online is a picture of a cat, right? No one knows your gender. No one knows where you're from. So if you can contribute something, great. Like you're in, like hop in, right? But then on the flip side, tribalism about very, very expensive NFTs can also get like pretty vicious.
Yeah. So there's just kind of like amplified, I guess. But dude, I want to have time to talk about your stuff too, because there's also so we can talk about the Jewel if you want, or we can skip past it.
Let's skip Jewel.
I feel like it's painful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I've thought about it enough.
I want to save you from the torture.
So you had BlackRock to manage USDC Circle's reserves.
Yeah. So I was talking to someone the other day, and they were effectively like, Teach, like what's going on with liquid tokens? Like why is nothing performing well? And I feel like what's kind of interesting about the phase we're in, and it's not a novel idea, right? But it's in bear markets where you kind of see if actual underlying progress is being made, right? If like people are continuing to lay the pipes, if like legitimacy of crypto more broadly is continuing to improve. And if you see that steady uptrend in fundamentals and legitimacy, then ultimately what you know is at some point, like the tokens will come back into favor, right? And I feel like there's some very basic things that I don't hear people talking about that much, mainly because tokens are down, but that demonstrate the fact that like we are progressing day in, day out. And I think the most obvious one is really that BlackRock has signed on to be the exclusive manager of USDC's reserves. So USDC, obviously centralized stablecoin issued by Circle, backed 1-to-1 by dollars, but it's actually not dollars that they keep it in. They don't keep dollars, inert dollars in a bank account. they invest in short-term treasuries, U.S. treasuries, like the safest credit on earth. The thing about that credit is you can't just buy an ETF, right? Like you can't be completely passive. You need an active strategy to manage that liquidity. And so there are a variety of money managers that do this for a living. But historically, those money managers don't necessarily want to be associated with a crypto entity, right? There's too much risk to their existing clientele. What you're seeing is the best or one of the best money managers in the world, BlackRock, signing on exclusively to manage USDC reserves, inextricably linking its brand to USDC. Absolutely massive for legitimacy and adoption.
Yeah.
And what you're increasingly going to see is partnerships like we've been talking about since the beginning. The institutions are coming, right? It turns out the institutions never came. Now in the bear market, what's happening? The institutions are coming, right? Fascinating dynamic. They're not really buying BTC and ETH, but they're actually plugging into the infrastructure of crypto itself. They're building it into their core business, and I think you'll start to see more of that. At Maker and at UST, right? Those are other stable coins in the ecosystem. I would not be surprised if in the coming months you see large partnerships, sort of coming out of those.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's a really good point, and there's been so much, doubt around stablecoins, like centralized or otherwise. I never thought about that. I just like the legitimacy it brings, and it's probably a pretty good sign that like the government's not going to be fucking with Circle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean that's a great point, right? Like one of the biggest hurdles for crypto to move forward, whether it's integrating with institutions or gaining mainstream adoption or whatever, is just like this specter of regulatory scrutiny that exists, just a fog. And the fact that BlackRock, publicly traded stock with a lot to lose, has taken on this exclusive agreement to plug directly into crypto, I think says about all you need to know about where crypto is vis-a-vis legitimacy in the real world.
Yeah.
Same kind of note. Another interesting thing that happened this week is Stripe, which is a payments company primarily for businesses, integrated USDC via Polygon. And that's another interesting bit, right? Like we've been talking about crypto transforming payment rails for a long time, but you see very, very little activity of it actually doing so, right? Like we've been talking about remittances for a while. The fact that that market is ripe for disruption hasn't really been disrupted, right? But with the sort of genesis of things like Solana Pay and Polygon USDC on Stripe, you're finally seeing DeFi plug directly into the rails that allow people to buy not just NFTs and liquid tokens, the stables, but like their day-to-day transactions. And on like Ethereum mainnet, like no one in their right mind would use DAI or USDC on Ethereum mainnet to pay for anything, because for small payments, the gas you would pay vastly outpaces the price of the product or the service you're paying for. But on side chains like Polygon or on Solana, where the fee environment is much lower, all you really need is for these these payment rails, the Venmos, the Cash Apps, the Stripes, the Squares, to integrate these services, and then you shouldn't really have a problem. And I think the 0 to 1 here, honestly, is people, fudders will say, like, why would I need to pay in stables if I just have a credit card? And the answer to that lies in the monopoly that Visa and MasterCard have over payments. Like when you go and pay for something at a store, there's something called a merchant acquirer. And I think that can be the credit card company themselves, or that can be a middleman. And that middleman basically charges the merchant 2 or 3% to process that transaction, because either the merchant acquirer or the credit card company, they own the ledger upon which that transaction is done. So Visa or MasterCard, they're basically like an L2 on Swift, right? On like US dollar rails. What you're basically saying is, no, we're not using this private ledger that these two payment companies have a monopoly on. Instead, we're using USDC on Polygon, right? A more decentralized, cheaper ledger to get that payment done, which I think is probably pretty interesting for mainstream adoption as well.
Yeah. And so what's like I mean, in what you outline there, is Stripe isn't the middleman, like they're just taking they would presumably be taking much less of a fee, or would it still be a scenario where they are taking 2 or 3%? I mean,
yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you would think out of the gate, right, to be competitive, they would keep the fee super low, but like, I mean, it's a good point. In the limit, would they not just converge upon the same shit?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because there's also I mean, this is not super recent, but Solana Pay was launched by like Solana Labs, I think, right? And basically made it, from what I could tell, pretty accessible for merchants to accept USDC for anything. And it like automatically puts into some interest bearing account, like, which like sounded kind of sketchy to me. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it's in a bear market, but all these things, like, it's kind of giving crypto more legs to stand on,
Definitely.
Because it can so often feel like vaporware, especially in a bear market, where you start to realize like, holy shit, this DeFi Kingdoms thing, what the fuck was it? But stuff like this is like, okay, yeah, this could really change the way that like a core business function is done, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see, and like as a market participant as well, like on some days where BTC's just been fucking ranging for 2 months, you're like, Jesus Christ, can we like get some juice? Like, you see things like this and you're like things are changing, right? Like the plates are shifting underneath our feet. Like, things are getting realer, progress is being made, legitimacy is occurring. Like, you got to just be in this for the long term and hold shit that you want to be holding long term. And I think it's pretty much all good.
Yeah. I agree.
Last thing, I think the least significant, but another piece that's pretty huge. Fidelity, one of the biggest money managers in the world as well, have a variety of retirement plans that allow people to either on a discretionary or non-discretionary basis invest in assets. They just added, or they have plans to add BTC. So if you think about, the premise of buying Bitcoin today, you have your model of the world of who the marginal buyers of that Bitcoin might be, and the upward price pressure that those group of buyers put on BTC. Now you can basically just add like this massive incremental buyer that's on the horizon in these Fidelity retirement plans, which is also massive.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised. I think it's just because the like tech stocks, I mean, are down so much, but I'm surprised that this hasn't moved the price more. Someone brought up an interesting point. This guy, Alex Kruger, do you know who that is on Twitter? Kruger
No.
Macro.
No.
He's really good, but he was, I hadn't like looked at it, but Bitcoin is down. Bitcoin is so far this year, like on a high time frame, outperformed the NASDAQ.
Yeah, by 4 or 5%, right?
Right. Yeah. Like it's somewhat significant. And that's pretty crazy, dude. Like it's just not noticeable because we're not like mooning to like 100K and Bitcoin's the future. But that's pretty, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Is that like evidence of, this actually is becoming more of a store value, like safe haven asset?
I mean, what I think is interesting is like BTC and ETH have fared pretty similarly against the NASDAQ, right? And so I don't think you can tease out BTC's performance as being an indicator that people are buying BTC increasingly as an inflation and volatility hedge, right? Because it's not necessarily performing differently than the beta of crypto. And I'm saying Ethereum is beta. What I do think it says though is that a larger portion of investors than we'd expected are comfortable holding blue chip crypto when the world is kind of shitting itself, right? When there's a risk off environment, when inflation is high, when rates are rising and anticipated to rise even more. People don't want to hold the overpriced stuff that sits in the S&P and NASDAQ. You're seeing sell-offs in private markets, like a bunch of private companies are taking down rounds, right? Like risk assets are getting wrecked. But what you're seeing is people are comfortable, even in a bear market, holding on to the fundamentals of good crypto, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. Because honestly, I'm wait, can you not? Oh, you can't see my screen, huh? Oops.
No.
I was just gonna pull up both charts. There we go. Oh, why is it tweaking out? Hold on a second. Sorry, bro.
You're good, fun.
There we go. Yeah, I'm sometimes like really doubtful of the whole like, oh, it's a you know, like I always try to like be realistic, and be like, okay, if Bitcoin went to 10K, like am I like okay with that? Like what would happen to me? Like what happened to what I'm holding, because I don't even hold Bitcoin, and some guys in my Discord that I like banter with a lot, they're like, one of them was saying to me recently, like, oh, the hope is like, oh, if the stock market sells off more, that Bitcoin becomes that Bitcoin becomes like the store value asset, and people realize that. And I was telling them like, well, is there any evidence to suggest that would happen? And now there's some evidence. I mean, it's not like evidence that people are selling their stocks to buy Bitcoin, but people aren't selling Bitcoin as much as they're selling their stocks, right? I guess that's
Right.
And that's here, let me look at the
or it means that there's more buying of Bitcoin than there is of stock.
Yeah. So where's the beginning? It's like the yearly open. Stock market's down 21, or sorry, NASDAQ. And then Bitcoin's yearly open. It's like right around
fucking
here.
chart goblin, dude. You're dancing on the charts.
It's like right here, I think. But no, that can't be it. But it's something, I don't know. Maybe it's the bottom of this candle. I have to get the exact date, but it's less, right? I think that's what it is. I think it's 18%. If I go down to the exact day,
18% on NASDAQ or Bitcoin?
On Bitcoin, because here's January 1st. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, that was the yearly open. That's 46 too. So it's down 17, and this is down 20.
What I think is also increasingly becoming the case is like all of these like very sanctimonious arguments about how like reckless and volatile crypto is, like they're being dismantled because of what's happening in the equities markets. Like people have seen stocks like DocuSign. DocuSign is behaving like a shitcoin. Like DocuSign and the synthetic chart look the same.
Yeah. What's DocuSign? Let's see.
Like check the DocuSign chart. I mean, maybe it's done better recently, but
look at this gap. Oh my god!
Look at that!
Holy shit, bro! Is this a weekend gap? This is the earnings report, and then it gapped after. Jeez, it jabbed 32%. Jesus fucking.
This is a shitcoin.
This is almost more scary because of the no trading after hours shit, because trading closes and it just opens.
I mean, that's another thing, right? Like you're seeing that limit down on earnings, right? Like a problem with public markets is they're not actually public. There's no transparency into the underlying financials of the company. Like you do not have regular updates into what is happening. Yeah. Whereas like if you look at crypto, like a lot of the stuff is on chain, right? Like you can on a second to second basis see what revenue is coming in, see which wallets are holding, like you get insight into stuff. I feel like in this bear market, what's really interesting is you're seeing a lot of these arguments about how immature, reckless, volatile crypto is kind of start to erode as you see equities and like other more institutional assets fall apart.
Yeah. Damn, bro. It's pretty, it's pretty crazy, man. we could be looking at really like a paradigm shift. And honestly, I've been so distracted with NFTs and my fucking NFT project that I haven't really like taken the time to think about it at a high level. And like, it's definitely crazy. I mean, because what happens, you know, will we see more alpha with Bitcoin on the upside? Like, what if we reverse here at the you know, last year's yearly open? Like, I mean, what happens with Bitcoin then? You know, the relative strength it's been showing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like when I have conversations like this, and like there's discussion of like the fundamentals of crypto relative to the fundamentals of equities of the last few months, even though we're in this like shitty, like limp price action, like I'm just so confident, you know?
Yeah.
Like where else are you going to put your money? You can't have it in cash, right? Cash is on fire at 8% a year, right? Like real estate's great as a part of our portfolio, but it's a pain in the ass. Equities are getting murked, you know? Like it's been really easy for a long time to be an investor. All you do is buy a thing that's scarce, Fed pumps liquidity in, you do well. Now we're going into a situation where volatility is high, inflation is high, and assets are shitting themselves. So it's like conditions aren't good. What do you want to hold? And like always, the answer is crypto.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Man, you're making me. Yeah. You're right. I think you are right.
Possible.
There's such cool stuff happening for a bear market, you know, for a bear market, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Speaking of cool stuff happening, dude, the Cyber Samurai, unreal. Dude, you're just making a fucking go of it, lad.
Pumping, dude. Pretty hyped about it. I didn't expect it, but I didn't expect it this early.
I expected it.
I thought it would happen like after we've done more stuff, but I guess we've already done some stuff. And what do NFT projects? I mean, not to be cynical, but a lot of projects barely do anything, and they're crazy. So
yeah,
it's kind of a weird market. But yeah, I'm hyped about it.
All right, dude. You got anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it, bro.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get this fucking wormhole done so I can buy this damn monkey if it's still around. Oh man, it's crazy that it's taking me this long. But yeah, I think that's it, bro. This was cool.
All right, we're good. It was fun. I feel like we got a good split between your expertise and what I claim mine is.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it because it just gave me like a firsthand look at some of this stuff that honestly, like I had seen the articles, but I hadn't even read anything. I hadn't really been paying attention to it. And it's just bullish, man. It's bullish cosmos.
Cosmos.
Yeah. Bullish link, maybe even link too. It's bullish for link.
Hey, the institutions are coming, right?
Yeah. All right, bro. I will talk to you soon.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Peace, brother.
How do I end this? Oh.